YouTube. What's up, YouTube? You've reached Book Girls on the
You
Internet.
have to say I'm Lo and I'm Emma and you reach.
Oh.
Come on.
Well, you know
Lord.
what? We'll do that next time.
Book
I'm
Girls on the
Lo.
Internet.
Okay, whatever. This is chaotic. We have gathered here today to discuss a book called A Shadow Crown by Melissa Blair. It's a sequel of um of not Shadow and Bone, A Broken Blade. So it's the second installment of the Halfling saga, whatever. And this is one of the A Broken Blade was one of our first review, I guess, on this channel. So I don't know. Let's test the water. What did you think? Okay, I feel like Emma, you're more of a fantasy aficionado. So I promise to hold on to my opinions and not be influenced by your take. But what did you think? Also, like maybe give us a synopsis of what the sequel was talking about.
Say that again.
Maybe you can give us a synopsis of what happened in the sequel, and two, your take on it. What did you think?
Well, first of all, I thought this was a duology. So imagine my surprise when it ended on a fucking cliffhanger. As always, spoilers. So I read a lot of books. I also forget about books pretty quickly. I was like, oh, I'll read a summary. I could not find a summary for this book. And I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to rock up.
Yeah,
let's just see.
It's too niche. Yeah.
Couldn't remember. I'm like, who's this guy? Who is that guy? Is that the shadow? Is that the whatever? It took me a couple chapters to kind of get the groove back, but that's on me, not the book. So it picks up right where the first one ended. There's no anything, like it's immediate. And essentially it's what's her name, the protagonist. I don't remember anyone's names. Sorry? Kira. So it's Kira who is deciding, has she been betrayed? Is she going to join the rebel cause? Oh my God, can she believe that the king or the prince is actually fighting against the king? Like, what? So it's a lot of her grappling with that at the beginning. But I found that this book, I'm really all over the place answering your question, but I found this book, Kira was more likable. Like there was more stuff in book one where they roughened up her edges, but by this one she's sober, she's fighting the good fight, she's
trying to open up.
Yeah, she was a little smoother, I guess. Oh my God, I feel anxiety around explaining the plot. Would you like to take over the plot?
No, I think you were doing great. Yeah, so the book, I'll pick up where you left off. So we follow Kira along as she is known across the kingdom as the Blade. So everyone knows that she's an assassin on behalf of the king. And by joining the rebellion and basically forming an alliance with the Shadow, Riven, and therefore Killian, who is the prince, that was the twist of the first book, she has to basically be accepted by the Elverin, or to make it simple, the elves, because they know her as the Blade and they know her as like the king's sword, basically.
And she's
so
still pretending to work for the king.
Right. And in parallel, yes, she's still pretending to work for the king, and the king gives her an ultimatum saying, you have to bring me the Shadow's head by the next full moon. So it's definitely tense, because the king is known to be cruel, so on and so forth. So the book deals a lot with her trying to be accepted by her people, because she is a halfling. She is light fae. Honestly, at the end, okay, spoiler, but at the end I still was not clear on if she was light fae or halfling, or if she's like a special halfling. Anyways, but a parallel plot of that is that there seems to be another either another rebellion or a group that is against the rebellion, that is blowing up safe houses of halflings that Kira and company are trying to actively rescue from the kingdom. So on the side of that, Kira is trying to investigate this on her own, both as the Blade but also as herself within the rebellion, because there's a lot of like there's a whole economy of secrets like in all parties of this book. Um, so we follow that, and then also the third, I guess, parallel slash subplot is there's this whole inquiry of whether the light fae are still alive or not, because basically to wage a war against the kingdom, the rebellion itself doesn't have enough warriors. So if the light fae are alive, then their magic would basically compensate for the lack of manpower of the rebellion. So that there are three parallel plots going on. So definitely a mouthful. There's a lot of things going on in the book, and it's still relative, basically the same size as the first book, maybe a bit thicker. But yes. Okay, so now to our opinions. What did we think? What did you think, Emma?
Overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading it. It was easy as a page turner. It was,
Oh, also it's a
enjoyable.
romance. Yes, and there's still the whole like Kira and Riven trying to figure out their relationship. Okay, so four things going on. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I liked that we got some answers around stuff. I feel like book one was a lot of laying the groundwork, as fantasies often are. So we got more information about the Light Fae. We got more information about how the king is allegedly immortal. We got more information about whatever. So I liked that. I'm like, I'm looking at what I wrote down. I feel like you could really feel the indigenous roots of the author in a lot of the ceremony that came out with the
Yeah,
elves, which was really special to read. The Tree City, for lack of a better word to call it, all I kept picturing in my mind, I'm like, was two things. So one, the thing from Lord of the Rings, obviously, like that's a very obvious parallel to the trees and its elves.
sure.
But
Yeah.
two, have you ever seen the animated movie Epic?
We watched it together.
Fuck yeah. I'm like, it's niche, but it's so good. I kept thinking of Nimgaloo.
Okay, you lost me there. Googling.
Take the pod to Nimgaloo, where this guy with the scrolls is. Okay. Did we watch it together, or do you not really remember it? I've seen it
I
about
only
6
remember
times.
the like
So.
the glasses that like zoom in and stuff.
Well, you should watch it again. But I kept thinking of that. Not loving the setup for the love triangle between the two brothers. Also, you find out that the Shadow and the Prince are brothers, and you're like, okay. And they're so obviously setting up that the Prince brother is in love with her.
I thought that was deep.
Yeah. Also, the Lord Curringham bit. So he's the like Lord that they're like, oh my god, he's spearheading this whole thing. But they keep talking about how like dumb he is and how disorganized,
Yeah,
and they
pause,
so
pause, pause.
quickly
What made you think of this?
the tree, not the actual character.
Okay, sorry.
You haven't been listening to me at all. While you talk, I will find the picture. But I didn't like that they basically took all this circumstantial evidence and were like, oh, it's totally Lord Cunningham. And it's like, really? Because you spent all of book one and a lot of book two being like, this guy's such a dank, like he could never. And then you're like, it must be him because we found this one pin and like, oh, the only obvious answer, Occam's razor, it must be him. And it's like, but what if it wasn't?
Yeah. I thought I was too easy to send Daenerys to the island or whatever to confirm, and then she just sends back a message to Kira and be like, "Yeah, it's him." It's just like, okay, well, like nothing really happened there. Like, um, okay, what else? Anything else?
the tree that he was in. Oh, not me showing my messages.
Okay, fair. It was, I don't know what I was imagining, but I was definitely imagining like some really long trees and vines. And the orbs really stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, okay, is it my turn to say what I thought?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I enjoyed reading the book. I don't know if like it's an issue with the genre or just this book slash author, but I found that the writing style was somehow not as good as I remember the first book to be like. There were just some I can't really give you an example, but there were some parts that was just like a little bit too on the nose. I was just like, okay. The whole love triangle thing I don't love. I thought also like the fact that we know that Kira is bi. It's just like, why make a love triangle with two guys? Like you could have come up with something else, you know? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just a thought. So I thought that was cheap. With that said, the story definitely keeps moving. So that I did see some reviews on Goodreads, which is not a reliable place for reviews, but there are some people
But
who
it's
say
got
like,
some nuggets.
yeah, there's some nuggets. You have to just parse through a lot of like just wind. Um, some reviews on Goodreads said that it was boring, but I didn't really like feel boredom. I was mostly just the element of mystery of like the purple fires and like the third party of like um which
Other rebels,
spoiler
like
alert, yeah, spoiler alert, turns out to be Damien, the evil prince. Really kept me wondering like what's gonna happen. Um, so I definitely enjoyed like the pace, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Um, there were some parts of the world building that felt rushed, but that's not to say that I would know like how else to do it. Like the whole part where they go in the rift and like Kira has
yeah.
this whole entire vision and she finds out that like light fae magic was locked into her and stuff like that. I felt like that was like very rushed. Um and I thought it could have been a better written, like it was an interaction with a memory of her mother after all, and like to be honest, it didn't really tug at my heartstrings, and I was like, I think this part should tug at my heartstrings. Like I didn't really feel that much like, wow, like this is such a meaningful part. But I did find it interesting, like in terms of like the world building, like the author Blair definitely tried to do a lot with the world building. Like even the whole like Curringham storyline, like there's basically an allusion to like other islands like off of the continent, which like I don't know if that will come into play later. Um, yeah, but the twist was definitely engaging. But I don't know where this is gonna go at this point. I do like the ending in the sense of like, okay, now there's no big secret. Like Kira is not really is not a double agent anymore, which I was tired. I was getting tired of that. Um, so I probably will read the third book to just kind of see like what's going to happen. Uh, but for an adult romantasy, I feel like the language is lacking. So I think that's like my main feedback. Like
Interesting.
it's not that I want it to be lyrical. It's just like emotionally, I don't feel that invested. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm trying to think of like there's other fiction works where it's like, well, I really like this character, you know. Um, but with this saga, this series, I'm just gonna stick to series. This series is like, I don't know. Kira, yeah, it's true that Kira is like softer in this book, which like, okay, I'm happy for you. Um,
It feels like parts of it, the author is not 100% Sure, or maybe she thought she was going down one path and then kind of changed it. Like in book 1, the villain is the king.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not the Shadow. But in book 2, he's like barely anything. And I like that Damien, who is like a minor villain, now gets built up and he's this like major villain, and it feels like we know more about him. So that inherently makes it more interesting to me.
Yeah, true.
Like, that got more interesting to me. She got less interesting to me. The Shadow, it felt like he was barely in it.
I know, he was just like a love interest, and I was like, bro, you used to be so dynamic. Also, like,
Yeah.
but at the same time, somehow, like, she made him like boring, like, as in, like, he's not actively like engaged in the plot, but also interesting in the sense that like he has magic and like, oh, they have this special bond, with the whole like shadows thing, which like I thought that was engaging, but
her
there,
healing, I'm interested to see how that develops. So
yeah.
is she now like fully unblocked? Like, or they have like, I don't
See,
know.
like that's the thing, like that's what I mean by like I felt like it was rushed because
Yeah.
after the whole Rift episode, I was just like, okay, so I mean, I guess that's the point. I guess we have to stay tuned. But just to explain to our audience of one person, um,
It's me watching these videos.
Kira has this light fey magic locked in somewhere in her body, and she finds that over the course of the second book. Um, and she has this vision in the rift where she basically goes back to where she was found as a child. Oh my god! Okay, wait, this is a sidebar. So let me just finish that. And then, anyway, so I guess we're led to believe that she's fully powerful now, which I assume she is because she heals Gwyn. I
Yeah.
just realized.
Pretty significantly.
Yeah, so I think she is fully unlocked, and I think my expectation is that her powers will grow because she will train. Because Riven was like, don't go to King's Landing or whatever the capital is, like you're not trained, like, you know, using your powers could kill you, which I thought was interesting because I'm like, okay, like I wonder who will train her. Maybe Farron will. Okay, speaking of characters, because that was a sidebar I wanted to mention. So I actually really liked Vrail, the one that Kira ends up training,
Like
the librarian.
Yeah.
Emma.
I'm really bad with names. I remember Brad.
The librarian. I really like her.
Yeah. I like it because she comes in and at first you're like, oh, like kind of bumbling, kind of whatever. And then it's like, no, actually, she's a fucking badass. And like, yeah, I liked that.
And I'm so glad Gwyn didn't die. Okay, that is the part that almost got me. I was like, if Gwyn dies, like, what a poor choice, like creatively, because like I feel like as a reader, like you really, that is some part of Kira's emotional landscape that like I can get behind, is like her love for Gwyn, like as a little sister.
Yeah, because that's been layered and developed since day one of like book one.
Yeah. Whereas like with Riven, don't get me wrong, like the sexy scenes were good, but I
like Red better.
Yeah, I feel like they don't have, other than Kira saying like I feel fire in my stomach or whatever the cheesy shit she says, is like I don't really see the chemistry, like I don't know. So yeah. Will we keep reading the series?
I will. Sorry, I'm like the person I'm dog sitting for just FaceTimed me and I was like, can I call you back? Yeah, I'll keep reading it. They're just like they're just easy to read. Like, would you recommend the book?
The book as a standalone?
No, not as a standalone. What kind of question is that? Would you recommend that people who have read book one read the second book?
Yes. Like I think it was interesting enough. Yeah, but I did feel more strongly about book one, which allegedly is usually the case with series or like book. Well, I mean, I agree. Like book 2 of Dune, oh my god, shoot me right in the head. Like it was awful. Like it was so terrible. I was like, will I ever finish this? Like literally at this point, I finished that trilogy because I bought it. Yeah, it was good. Then I feel like I'm gonna be like for real, like it's her second book. Like I don't know. I guess giving her grace. Like I'm sure like some of her other books will be great. Um, it just there were some parts that was just like this is not polished. Like especially the world building. Like I wish she had focused on something a few things a bit more. Like I feel like the whole
Mm.
portal system that was very brushed
Yeah,
over.
very.
I was just like, okay, so just need a berry to open the goddamn portal. Like that's it. Like that's all we need to know.
Just
Like
toss it in, you're good to go.
I know. It's just like okay, like TTC token in and here's the portal. um.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think for me, if I'm doing romance, like what I tend to enjoy a lot about the romance is the tension before they get together and then just the beginning of them getting together. And that all happened in book one. So
Mm,
yes, it was, you could tell she was trying to create tension with the like not trusting of whatever and like, but him staying away for so long and then it just, but then as soon as he got back, they were like, oh, back together,
yeah.
sleep together, whatever. I'm like,
Yeah. And then
okay.
at the beginning, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna show you can trust me, whatever." And then okay, show what? Oh,
Show her
like
this dick. Like, I don't know.
yeah, like nothing happened. You wrap your shadows around her ankles because you love her, and that's it. Come on, like the gesture has to be more grand.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I thought Tarvel being spoiler. If you're watching this, honestly, you asked for it.
You
Um,
spoiled everything else so far.
yeah, Tarvel being the mole, I thought was very interesting,
Honestly,
and
I
I'm
felt like
very.
that happened so fast and then it was whatever. And I was like, okay, all
But
that build
now
up.
I'm like wondering, like, what about Colin? Like in book three, like Kira is trying to win his trust, and she told him like, I tried to kill your family with dignity." Like
Yeah.
that was her MO, like as the Blade, and he obviously like did not appreciate it. So I really wonder what will happen to him in book three because Killian is in prison now, or at least we're led to believe that he still is. Oh my God, Gerarda. I like her. I really hope we see more of her in book three. I thought that her characterization was so subtle, but it was so good with like Hildegard and everything. Honestly, the side characters are the best at this point. The core characters are kind of boring.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I really the ending was engaging. Like I honestly I'm silly, but I really thought she was gonna kill the king. And then I finished the book and I was like,
I felt the
obviously,
same. I'm like, you're telling me that for a book and 2/3, we've been trying to figure out how to kill the immortal king, and you figure out what to do, and boom, it gets fucked up.
yeah.
Like, what? I
Like
also
I
felt like with the Colin thing when she told him about the death with dignity. First, it felt like he was forgiving her, like he said thank you and walked
yeah.
away. And I was like, are you kidding me? He's been hating her the entire book, and just like that is going to be forgiven. But then it turns out he was a fucking snake. So,
Yeah, he
you
was
know.
such a snake. Um, yeah. Honestly, with the amount of characters is definitely not to say the saving grace, but like it's keeping things really interesting because it goes hand in hand with world building. Like you're gonna meet more people.
Yeah.
Um, and for some reason I like that pure myth guy, like the elf that she saved like earlier or way earlier in the book, and she ended up playing with his
Oh
son
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. Like that was really cute. Um,
Also, her saving what's his face's mom from the caves that were
oh my
like
God,
off.
that
That was
was
very sweet.
interesting. Like that story, I mean, I don't know if she will gain back her like mind or whatever. But that was very interesting. Like I thought, and also like the whole like experiments that they did on her.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what experiments? Like,
Yeah, I want more about that.
yeah, or the way that Damien will source the halfling blood to like power his weapon, the Winvra. Basically, he's like transforming the berry. Wait, is that what happened? The purple flame has to do with him experimenting with the Winvra, which is like the main resource of in Elverath. Um, so yeah, there's definitely some interesting parts. Also, okay, I will say, I think she does it really well, like you said, like the whole like indigenous heritage presence, like in the book, as well as like it's very racially diverse. It feels like I think light and dark fae has something is a racial innuendo. Um, and other types of elves, like it sounds like, you know, look, we were focusing on the like tree elves, like in this book. In the first book, it was in Maryland or wherever, like where the
mountain thing.
whatever, yeah, mountain elves. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. But yeah, I would recommend the series. It's easy and it's fun.
It's quick.
And it's like an adventure style, which like it's timeless. So yeah. Okay. I think
Girls
we're done.
approved.
Yeah, Book Girls approved. Oh my god. We said it.
You heard it here.
Okay, thanks so much for watching. If you liked our video, please
subscribe.